Hello, Assalamu alaikum everybody. Hope you're all safe, sound, and healthy. And today we need to talk about how, remember, in the previous episodes, in the previous podcast, I've been talking about how America is literally just, courting its own demise. It's, knocking itself down, it's going down a rabbit hole from which it's going to be hard for it to recover. In other words, it's putting an axe to its own foot. In other words, right? And I told you that you will soon find Europe following suit. Because this is one thing that I don't know why people seem to never realize. As I'm talking by people, I mean the governments. It's like, if you remember when Trump came the last time, many Indians and Pakistanis and many Asians and Africans all over the world, they said that, finally America's got what it deserves. Finally our curses have been heard, and it was true, because we wanted the Americans to feel firsthand what it is that their government has put all our countries through and all our people through. And then when Biden came, I don't know why the Americans thought things were going to get better, but obviously Biden again tampered with our government. He tampered with our army. As you know, Pakistan right now is going through the worst form of authoritarian, illegal government. And this government was planted yet again by the American government, by the American establishment. And now, once again, America is going through the exact same thing. This is called karma, which in English people like to distortedly say karma, right? This is karma, okay? This is what goes around, comes around, full circle, okay? This is what nature is all about. This is what we say when we quote the age-old expression that you reap what you sow. The Americans have been, sowing this all over the world. And as I mentioned many times before in the past, that the Americans are not even aware of the fact that their government is going to ultimately turn on them. All these experimentations, all these upheavals that the American establishment has been orchestrating all over the world in different countries to keep control over them, this is not going to end with America, because remember, America itself is not a sovereign state. This is also something I've kept on and on repeating. If our countries are not sovereign states, America is not a sovereign state either. It's not a leader of the free world, nor does it endorse free trade or free world. Nothing free is acceptable to America. In turn, to the British, okay? So Europeans also, Europeans and Americans, they always had a justification for the way their governments behaved towards especially Muslims, towards Indians and Pakistanis, towards, Asians and Africans and various ethnic groups, but especially towards Muslims. And they always justified it with the 9/11 crap, even though 9/11 has been proved again and again by nobody else but your own journalists, your own investigative journalists and reporters, and by various senators and by various ministers, both in and out of America, both belonging to other countries as well as American government. They have all time and again proved it with evidence that 9/11 was a false flag operation by the American government. And basically, just to put it very, very, just to summarize it, to put it in a very, very big layman nutshell, it was just so that Bush and in turn basically the American establishment could finally get rid of the privacy laws and enact the Patriot Act, okay, which meant crapping all over your privacy laws, crapping all over your privacy rules, installing surveillance everywhere, and giving the NSA full command so that they can wiretap anything, they can hack anything, they can go through anything, not just in America, but actually the whole 9/11 charade was this, so that they could force other countries to adopt surveillance, to get rid of privacy, to at least enough of an extent that they should be obliged or forced to share information of their citizens with NSA and the CIA. And and as I said even then, that America is going to get what it's going to reap what it's sowed, basically. And it's time to reap, Americans. I mean, when you see, I mean, there's one thing I've got to give it to Trump. I've really got to give it to him for this, that he's like, okay, you know what, we're going to treat everybody equally. Every single time throughout history, there's been a pattern of European, because yes, European airports, they actually followed suit when the Americans decided to do a strip search of the Muslims. They basically started humiliating Muslims in the airport, and then they started doing it with particular countries, Asian countries, especially subcontinent countries, certain African countries. They wouldn't dare touch their Middle Eastern countries. Now here's where you need to see that the American government had enough of fear that they would they would lead to their own destruction if they try to touch the Middle Eastern people. But still, and the different other countries that led to the Middle Eastern belt, towards North Africa, they dared to go there. They dared, in other words, to strip search those visitors. They even dared, then, as I said, Europe decided that it was a very good idea and it should follow suit, especially with France and UK. And the Germans were actually very, very reluctant. But then, America literally created a whole terrorism scenario in Germany in order to force Germany to again, change its policies. So the Germans are now, as we can see, once again on the wrong side of history with its, white brothers and sisters. And that is why we always say that, the white race has always been the fasadi, which we refer to in Arabic and Urdu, the fasadi race, as in the race that causes problems, the race that causes chaos, the race that causes fights, the race that causes wars, in other words. So the race that causes trouble, that is a white race. Throughout history, again, you can see them with their world wars and with their terrorism incidents and with their false flag operations and then their global wars and then their, blah de blah and whatever. And the fact that America has to have its bases and then its NATO forces bases in every single country possible, so that just shows what fitna they are. And so, I mean, I kind of find it amusing as well as I find it ironic, that now, as I said, you got to give it to Trump that he's like, okay, I'm going to treat everybody equally. So before, when it was just Muslims and it was and certain countries, certain ethnic races, now he's like, treat everybody the same. Strip search, humiliate, detain, arrest, put in prison every single person, be them Canadian or even deny their entry, deny their visa, it doesn't matter. Be they Canadian, be they European, be they German, be they British. Don't give a rat's ass. Just put them all in. Just put them all in. And I think in a way this is just God's way of, you remember how every single time we always recite that sort of a, call it a poem, where we say they went for, so and so, everybody's quiet. They went for so and so, everybody was quiet. They went for so and so, everybody's quiet. And then they went for me, and there was no one left to speak up for me anyway. And that is exactly what now America is going through. And believe me when I tell you, Europe is next. The fact that America and Europe thought that they were, supreme kings of the earth, going around on a whim, declaring countries unsafe for travel, especially, they especially tortured Pakistan for that many times. Why? Simply because whenever there was a legitimate government in Pakistan, or whenever there was a government that, showed a little bit of resistance towards their, illegitimate needs and wants, then they would immediately slap a travel advisory, a ban, a sort of a safety issue, fabricating news about our country. Even recently, as you know, they didn't issue a travel ban on India, even though India was the one that always starts the problems across the border. But notice how every time India does something, and then whenever Pakistan reacts to it, then the West, they punish Pakistan because they think that Pakistan should be like Palestine, where it should just take it, just take it. We should just sit there helplessly and allow ourselves to be killed, to be, beaten, to be humiliated. And if the Palestinians are not allowing themselves to be, to be humiliated or to be killed so easily without resistance, what the frack made you think we would? Well, obviously, you did think that because you thought that you had put your own minions on top of us as government and that you could control us. And that's exactly what you were thinking. But obviously, even minions have to at least show or pretend to have dignity. Otherwise, their own people will just kill them. Although, unfortunately, our people are too lazy to even do that. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, so now, I mean, if you remember recently, just sometime in the beginning of this year, Nigeria had announced, had given a sort of a warning, an advisory ban on UK, declaring it a dangerous country. And I was like, kudos to you, finally, because yeah, this is something that even that time when Nigeria did that, I remember mentioning it in my podcast and saying that, you know what, it takes me back to the time when I actually told, this Abbey Bank, UK, when I told them that, you know what, your country is unsafe, and very soon you're going to be, when you're going to be declared unsafe by countries like mine, then I'm going to talk to you. And here we are. So now Europe is putting a travel ban on America in a way, as in there's advising caution, and Europeans have been detained. They have been, humiliated, so-called humiliated. Yeah, because when it was Muslims, that was not humiliation, right? Because then the Europeans and the Americans had justifications for that. Well, you know what? If you were justified pulling all that shit, all that crap on the Muslims, and especially the people of the subcontinent, regardless of the religion in that case, then you know what? I'm sure your government is pretty much justified pulling all that shit on you and on your European and Canadian and Australian counterparts. Yeah, I mean, if they had a valid excuse to do that to the Muslims and the Asians and the Africans, I'm sure they have a pretty valid excuse to do that now to your own white family, your cousins, your fellow race. Oh, I don't even know what to say, seriously. I mean, I'm not, the reason why I need to say it this way is in order to make you understand what it feels like. You're sitting and crying and saying, "Oh, we went through this for years." For years. Do you know how many Muslim students were arrested on the spot? They just listen, if you didn't want Muslims coming, you should not have accepted them into your universities after the 9/11 shit that you pulled, okay? You should have given them back their money and you should have canceled their visas. But no, you took their money, you let them come to the airport, and then you detained them. And then you sent them to some unknown prison where you kept them as terrorists. And their parents, those who had rich parents here in Pakistan and other countries, they traced their kids and they pulled all the stops to try to get their kids back. And those who couldn't afford it, they were at the mercy of the American law, which had no transparency. Even now, the famous gray lady, who's probably half mentally completely gone by now, she was tortured, she was kidnapped, then she was detained in some black site, and then she was tortured, and now she's in American jail. And the American authorities showed no transparency. They fabricated claims against her without any evidence. First, they did not even accept her existence. They did not even admit to the fact that they had her. If Imran Khan and fellow journalists and human rights activists had not found out about her existence, the Americans were just getting a clean shit out of that. They were just getting away with kidnap. Not only did they kidnap her, they took her children from her and they illegally gave those children to various families in different places. And it took a long time to find each one of those children and bring them back to their family here in Pakistan. And it was nothing was done by the Pakistani authorities, nothing was done by the American authorities. It was Imran Khan, it was Afia Siddiqui's own family, her sister, her mother, okay? It was the journalists that got involved, it was the activists, it was their lawyer, Afia Siddiqui's lawyer, and it was very painful, that process. It's unforgettable. And the Americans, they still have her. And they very neatly turn a blind eye. So tell me, why should we care that America has lost billions now in the tourism industry, and that businesses are failing, and that airports are empty, and that flights are literally empty, literally? And why should we care? This is something we should have done when America did the 9/11 charade. This is something we should have done then. And this is, again, as I said, when the Americans were falsely blaming the immigrants for everything, like how in the UK now they're always trying to blame the immigrants. I will again remind you, Pakistan has had the largest number of immigrants, legal and illegal, in the world until last year. Only last year, because of the whole Syrian war, which again was thanks to America and Israel, only last year did another country trump over Pakistan with the number of immigrants. Okay? But otherwise, for decades, Pakistan has remained number one, top of the list on having the largest number of refugees, both legal and illegal. And again, amongst them was predominantly Afghans. Yes, the same country that was again screwed by the Americans. So tell me, how is it that Pakistan, which is smaller in geography, compared to America, how is it that we still managed, and you are actually blaming your crisis, you, the UK, which is actually a small country, so I understand that you feel that maybe your crisis is due to saturation, but no, actually it's not. It is again due to your economic crisis, which is again due to your economic system. You see, the Western economic system is actually far from strong, I would say, physically strong. You don't have physical money present in your banks. You have invisible money. You have virtual money. The reason why in recessions, countries like Pakistan, India, and other countries which you think are developing countries, the reasons why we remain stable to a large extent and we do not collapse is because we have actual physical money in the banks. Whereas the Western economy deals with credit through and through. It is virtual money. The more you have virtual money, the more you are liable to collapses. Any small or big upheaval within your bank system and you will collapse. It is common sense. You don't need to be an economist to understand that. In fact, the economists are the ones that have probably taught you that no, it is this. No, that's all bullshit. The long and short of it is you do not have physical money present in your pockets and in your banks and in your accounts. Okay? largely, on a very large scale, you've been dealing with virtual money, which is practically non existent money, which is why the European and the American and the Canadian and even Australian, if they follow suit, economy is susceptible to easy collapse. Sorry, excuse me. So here we are. It's not, in fact, as I've even mentioned many times before, if you actually knew, tourism and immigration are the two things that have kept your economy stable. The amount of money that you have earned from foreign students, from tourists, and from immigrants is huge. As I've said before, you are only existing and surviving till date because of the immigrants, the foreign students, and the tourists. And the day these will stop, you will feel the brunt of it. Remember, I actually said that many times in the previous episodes. And here we are, we're right there today. America is literally feeling it, it's feeling the bite. Okay? It has come to bite it right in the ass. Because when, as I said, for how long do you think people are going to ignore the way you treat them, the way you humiliate them, the way you strip search them, the way you tell them to remove their shoes, the way you tell them, seriously, what's wrong with you? You know, as I've said before, when I talked about traveling and I talked about the way you behave with your tourists and with your guests, it says a lot about you, and you will see a negative impact. And it's a long time coming, but thanks to Trump, it finally came. But it's a long time coming. But the thing is that actually it had started after 9/11. It had started after COVID. You saw it. You literally saw the reason why you felt it so badly during COVID, why you had to close everything down in the Western world. Whereas in Pakistan, Imran Khan dealt with COVID very smartly. And then, if you remember, Europe and America, Canada and Australia literally were asking Imran Khan for a blueprint on how to smartly deal with COVID without completely closing down everything, because you felt the loss very badly, isn't it? The reason you felt that loss very badly is because I think you didn't realize it, but immigration had already slowed down and tourism had slowed down. International students' percentage was slowing down, okay, in these recent years. And you didn't feel it because it was gradual. But now it has actually accumulated to this point where it has, suddenly hit you really bad. And now you're realizing, oh, okay, why are the airports empty? Why are the planes empty? Oh, and you're blaming it on Trump. As I said, Trump just rushed things in the sense that he just made it happen more quicker, but it was already happening. The person you need to really congratulate for that, the person you need to give credit to, is President Bush Jr., and after that, Biden, and Trump, who was just, as I said, wrapping things up very quickly. Because he doesn't have a very patient nature, I guess. And he's like, oh, let's just do it. We know we're doing it. Why pretend? Why drag it on? While the other presidents were literally pretending to be good guys and dragging it on and hoping that if we do it slowly, nobody's going to notice. And it's true, you didn't notice. But it was happening over the years. You didn't notice. And now it's gone full halt. So now you're noticing it. That's the difference here. And soon Europe is Europe is already noticing it, because after COVID and all, as you can see, Italy, France, UK, Germany, they desperately need people from outside. They desperately need, skilled workers. They need educated, qualified employees in different fields. But at the same time, they just don't know what to do because the demand is not being met, especially for the different fields that they want, because those people who are interested in those fields prefer to go now to the Middle East, or they prefer to go to Malaysia, or they prefer to go to Japan and Korea or China, right? So yeah, and right now, it's so freaking funny because England is, as I said, now trying the new government, you can say, or at least the past three prime ministers that were thrown out by the people of England. They were trying to put the people up against the immigrants. And, just like how the American government successfully tried with its own people. And I would say successfully because, as we know, Americans have been isolated, they've been brainwashed, they've been preconditioned for decades. So it was so easy to, just condition them that, oh, the immigrants are behind everything, oh, we don't have jobs because no. And now you see, remember I said, okay, get rid of all the immigrants and see what you're going to. And see, now the farmers are the first people complaining because no immigrants means no labor. They're going at a loss. Farms are closing, factories are closing, businesses are closing, right? You're suffering this loss because you got rid of those immigrants. So now England also, I would tell England too, yeah, get rid of all the immigrants and please do, and then see what happens. But of course, again, the difference between England and the US is, again, the geography, as in, America is huge, Britain is very small in comparison to that. Or should, if we just talk about England, actually, let's not even talk about Britain, because it's not Britain per se that is getting saturated, it's England. Scotland, Wales, Ireland are not facing this kind of saturation. It's basically England. And again, this is over the years, and it's not the whole of England. Again, as we know, it's always pockets. In every country, it's certain cities, certain pockets that get saturated. Everybody wants to be in the central location, and so it gets saturated. And then people who have sense begin to diversify, but still more and more people try to stick to the center. And that is why things go wrong. It's in every country. I mean, even natives in their own country. For example, if you look at Pakistan, people from all over Punjab, they would try to come and settle and get a job in Lahore. Not even Islamabad, which is the capital city. No, everybody's first choice is Lahore. They have to come to Lahore. So Lahore is pretty much saturated. Similarly, people from, KPK and Balochistan, there are two places that they would always, if they come down here towards the center for opportunities, it's Lahore and Karachi. And Islamabad comes in third or fourth, really, if they've really. But again, their main concentration, Lahore and Karachi, and that is why Lahore and Karachi are so saturated compared to other cities all over Pakistan. Population wise, and why again you have job issues now in these two cities because it's oversaturated, and it's the same thing with England actually. But yes, no, if England thinks it can blame the immigrants and all, again, the reason why England is still managing to stand on one leg, not even both of its legs, but one leg, is because of these immigrants. Because these immigrants, when they come, money pours in. You don't think you're getting immigrants for free, not even asylum seekers. And right now, because Pakistan has been put in this situation by the American and British governments, thank you very much. So now, actually, as I said, what goes around comes around. It is really a miracle of God, and it is karma that Britain and America are right now going through the exact same thing that they just put Pakistan through. So we're all three of us going through the same thing, full circle. And so in Britain, they're right now, because as I said, Pakistan is going through the same shit. Pakistan has seen the largest number of movement, as I said, in these past 2 years of people leaving this country, And as remember, I was talking about how one of the main concerns that the engineer I was talking to had was security, that anybody with the slightest amount of power or money can do anything to anybody, and you just don't know, because you're a human being. You can make a mistake, and if you're making a mistake, and if somebody belongs to some black money elite class, haram ki kamai wale, or somebody who's related to some judge or some army personnel or some politician or anybody who just has power above you, and if God forbid he just does anything to you, You have no support, you have no law, you have no order. Where are you going to go? What are you going to do? And if, God forbid, you end up dying or somebody ends up dying, it doesn't matter then. Now, if the whole justice system comes forward to give you justice, you're dead, you're gone. You're not coming back. So with these valid concerns, so with he was right, because as you know, right now, the largest number of asylum seekers that the UK government has just come across, as in, the cases that have been filed with the UK government, has been from Pakistan. Pakistan right now has been number one with the largest number of asylum seekers filing in the UK. So imagine if they're filing in the UK, obviously they're filing in every other country, they're filing in America, although America now is not, again, of choice that Pakistan, but it is, not much of a choice. The Pakistanis would much prefer to go to other countries where they can seek asylum, right? And obviously, again, who put us there? Who put us at that point? That we're forced to leave our own country, we're forced to leave the comfort of our home, and seek asylum. It's the British government and the American government. They're 100% responsible for putting us in that situation in the first place, right? So, America, what you're going through is what your government has forced upon us for decades, but especially these 2 years when our legit government was ousted. Our former prime minister is in jail. There have been at least 3 attempts on his life. And it's all because of the American government. It's all because of your government. So what you're going through right now is what you have already put us through, and so we're going through it too. And what you're going through might help you understand that your government is not always right. And you need to also educate yourselves, and all of us actually, we need to educate ourselves on this fact that it cannot be that your government is wrong when it's doing it to you, but it is justified and valid when it's doing the same thing to a Muslim or to a South Asian or to an African. You understand? You can't have 2 different rules for 2 different people under one authority. That is how law and order collapses. You cannot have one rule for you and another rule for us. Your government cannot be right to do it to us and wrong to do it to you. You understand? So it's good to go through it. It's good to feel the pain that others have been subjected to, the humiliation that others have been subjected to for decades, thanks to your government. And your government has been so ruthless and so perverse and such a warmongering government that it has made us go through humiliation in our own countries by our own illegal, illegitimate governments. Not only did your government put us through all of that in your countries, as visitors, as tourists, as international students, as immigrants, but they are forcing us to go through the same thing in our own countries by our own governments, in much the same way as now they're putting you through it in your own countries. So, this is why we need to call a spade a spade. And we shouldn't turn a blind eye to something that is being done to other people, because it means that now it can be done to us. Here, that is the moral of the story here. This is what we need to learn from this. So you cannot sit and say now, oh, you know what, but Israel is justified. No. It's the same again, learn from this experience and understand why Palestine is right and why Israel is wrong, why your government is wrong, why your government is responsible for creating the Israel Palestinian issue, for creating this occupation, and how your government has been meddling in other countries' affairs and creating chaos in other countries, and how your government has been 100% behind terrorism in both your own country as well as other countries, you need to open your eyes and wake up to these facts. The European governments, the American government have been nothing but criminals and warmongers causing chaos all over the world. And so it's obvious that now they will come and do it to their own people, because you didn't actually think that your governments were going to protect their own people. Well, no. As I said before, when I kept on saying, wait for it to go, wait for it to happen to you, is because this was obviously the ultimate end. Whenever these kind of plans are laid out, you first do it to other countries as experiments, and then you keep on and on and on doing it to other countries until you have full control. And then when you're fully satisfied with your targets, when all your targets are achieved, everything is done, then you finalize your mission by doing it onto your own people, because that was the ultimate plan, full control. You cannot have full control over different countries and not have it over your own people. It's common sense again. So yeah, at least now you realize the impact of immigration, of international students, and tourism. That these are the three factors that helped America, Canada, Australia, and Europe survive the way they have. The day you pull all of these out, what you're seeing happening in America, and it's a very large country. Now imagine the impact on a place like Canada. Imagine the impact on a place like England. Imagine the impact on other countries in Europe. Imagine the impact it will have even in a place like Australia, because Australia, its struggles are that there is a vast amount of land and not enough people. So, like in certain parts of Canada, where there are parts that are undeveloped and they would like to develop them, and they need manpower, they need resources, they need the economy, they need, they need the people, they need immigrants, they need students, they need employees, they need resources, they need finances. And where are you going to get it from? International students, tourism, and immigration. So in Canada's case, obviously it's different. Canada, actually, the quota that Canada had for these 3 years, that quota got filled up in less than a year. So they actually had no choice but to close everything, and that's understandable. And also the fact that they were not even ready infrastructurally for this is a bit concerning. You would expect Canada to be ready where transport is concerned, where healthcare is concerned, where infrastructure is concerned. But somehow or the other, they never got around to doing it, even though they actually started different projects of development in different areas of Canada that were not yet developed. But I'm thinking that if they had, why start those pilot programs then when they hadn't even completed the infrastructure for it, or the transportation system, or they should have worked more on that. And I think they're realizing now that yes, they should have actually worked on these things first, and which is why they were not ready. But as I said also before, the immigrants are the reason why you haven't 100% collapsed yet. Okay. And even now, if America is barely standing, it's because of some of those those pending immigration documents filed in, the money that has already come in. And now you're going to take that money and you're going to do dirty on those immigrants by rejecting them. And you're not even going to return the money back to them, by the way. You just watch what happens. Well, this is me signing out. Food for thought here, everybody. Food for thought. Because especially people in Pakistan who also now want to go out, they have also realized that right now all the other countries are the pits, like Pakistan. All the other countries have nothing much to offer now, like Pakistan. But you know what? Instead of thinking conventionally about Europe and America always, why don't you look into Asia? Different countries nearer Pakistan that have so much to offer, you know, and they're actually worth it. Middle East has always been a very good and viable option for our people. Yes, but you know what? Think about other countries in Asia. Think about Africa. You know, think about opportunities that you can get in different countries. Try to diversify yourselves to get more experience. This the new generation, I think, has always been more comfortable and more, fixated towards Europe and the West, because I guess it's basically because of the language again. It's because we speak English, we're comfortable with that. You go to another country in Europe even, and you have to learn that language all over again. But I think I'm finding it very nice to see that the young generation, our generation, but also the young generation, they do not care much and are ready to learn a new language. So they would opt for other European countries where English is not the language. And there are, as I said, very few sensible people who would branch out towards other places in Asia and Africa. Those are very, very sensible people, because there is a lot more opportunities awaiting you there. It's a larger space to work on. It's bigger and better, really, in many ways. Well, now this is me signing out. Khuda Hafiz.